You've probably noticed it by now. The smarter you get, the more alone you feel. And I'm not talking about small talk being boring. I mean something that goes much deeper, something that actually messes with your sense of self-worth. You find yourself trying to explain something that seems, I don't know, blindingly obvious to you. You've fact-checked it. You've looked at the sources. You understand the logical chain. You've considered the counter-arguments, and they don't hold up. You're not just confident, you're certain, backed by facts, backed by logic, backed by evidence. You've literally spent time verifying yourself, and then you try to share it. Watch what happens next. Their eyes glaze over first. That's the small version. But sometimes it's worse. They get angry. Their face tightens up. Defensive, like you just insulted them. Except all you did was present information. All you did was think clearly. And that somehow feels like an attack to them. Here's the part that really gets to you, though. Because it's not that they don't understand what you're saying. That would make sense, right? If they didn't understand, you could break it down simpler, use different words, find a better analogy. But that's not what's happening. Deep down, you know it. It's not that they won't understand it, it's that they can't. Not won't. Can't. Because understanding would force them to admit something about themselves, something about the world, something about the entire structure of beliefs they've been living inside for years, maybe decades. And instead of facing that discomfort, instead of feeling that moment where their identity actually cracks and shifts, they choose something easier. They choose not to think, they choose stupidity. And this is where almost everyone gets it completely wrong. Most people think stupidity is about being dumb. IQ scores, bad education, lack of access to information. We say it all the time, wow, they're just not smart enough to understand. Now, we blame it on their upbringing, their social class, their opportunities. But what if that's completely backwards? What if stupidity has nothing to do with your brain capacity and everything to do with your willingness to think? What if it's not about how much intelligence you have, it's about what you do with it? What if stupidity isn't a lack of intelligence at all, but an active, chosen surrender of it? Think about that for a second. Not lacking intelligence, surrendering it. That changes everything. And what if one man, a brilliant theologian, a pastor, a double agent working inside Nazi military intelligence, executed by the regime just weeks before the war ended, what if he figured out exactly how this happens? What if he understood why stupidity is more dangerous than evil itself? Why, once someone crosses that line, you will never convince them again, no matter what evidence you bring. His name was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And what he discovered, it's the theory they never wanted you to hear. December 1942, we're in the middle of World War II. Germany isn't some distant threat in history books. It's at its absolute peak of power. The Nazi regime has consolidated total control. It's turned genocide into an industrial system. Millions of people are already dead. The machinery is running perfectly. It's normalized. It's become the air people breathe. Dietrich Bonhoeffer isn't some random observer watching from the sidelines, writing poetry about his suffering. This man is a brilliant theologian, a pastor with international connections, someone who's read deeply, who understands philosophy, who's wrestled with questions about faith and evil and human nature at the deepest level. But here's what most people don't know about him. He's also a double agent. He's working inside German military intelligence every single day. He's risking his life, not in some distant way. I mean, literally. Every decision he makes, every meeting he attends could be his last. He's part of a conspiracy. He's working with other military officers, other men of conscience, trying to figure out how to kill Adolf Hitler. These aren't theoretical resistors sitting in cafes talking about revolution. These are men who understand that the only way to stop what's happening, the only way to actually end this, is to remove the head of the regime. It's Christmas 1942. Bonhoeffer knows, with reasonable certainty, that he probably won't survive much longer. The walls are closing in. The Gestapo is getting closer. Arrests are accelerating. Security is tightening. People he knows are just disappearing. So he does something profound. He sits down and writes a letter, but not to the public, not to history, not to the masses who might read it after he's gone. He writes it to 3 men, his closest friends, fellow conspirators, other people risking everything. And in that letter, which he titles After 10 Years, he commits to paper one of the most brutal, honest psychological observations about human nature ever written. Because Bonhoeffer is watching his own country collapse into madness, and he wants to understand why. Germany wasn't some backwards nation of uneducated peasants. This was one of the most educated, sophisticated, cultured societies in all of Europe. This was the country of Goethe and Bach and Kant, a nation of professors, of doctors, of engineers, people with advanced degrees, people who read philosophy, people who understood music, people who could debate complex ideas with nuance and precision. How did intelligent people become instruments of evil? That's the question that haunts him. How did the educated become complicit? How did the thoughtful become thoughtless? How did people who valued reason and learning and truth surrender all of it? That's what he's trying to answer. And his answer is terrifying because he doesn't blame ignorance. He doesn't blame cruelty or sadism. He doesn't blame the existence of bad people. He doesn't say, well, some people are just evil. No, he blames something far more insidious, something far more dangerous, something that most people don't even see as the problem. He gives it a name. And that name changes everything about how you understand the world. He calls it stupidity. But not the kind you think. Listen to what Bonhoeffer actually wrote. These are his exact words. Stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice. Read that again. More dangerous than malice, more dangerous than evil, more dangerous than people who are actively, intentionally trying to hurt others, more dangerous. And then he explains why. You see, you can fight evil. You understand evil. You can point to it and say, that's wrong. You can expose it. You can resist it. You can organize against it. Evil makes people uncomfortable. It disturbs them. It leaves traces, a guilty conscience, a crack in the person's certainty that you can exploit. Evil, in a strange way, respects the intelligence of its opposition because it has to. But stupidity? Against stupidity, we are helpless. That's what he says. We are helpless. Neither protests nor the use of force accomplish anything here, he writes. And then he explains the mechanism. The stupid person doesn't actually care about your facts. You bring them evidence, peer-reviewed studies, data, documentation, testimony from credible sources, and they dismiss it. Just dismiss it. Not because they didn't understand it, but because it threatens something deeper. You show them logical contradictions. You say, look, you said A, but that contradicts B, therefore C doesn't follow. And instead of reconsidering, instead of saying, I hadn't thought about that, they get more entrenched. They defend A harder. They find reasons why B doesn't actually apply. They dig in. You prove them wrong with irrefutable data. You say, look at these numbers, look at this study. The evidence is clear. And they call it irrelevant. They say, well, that's just one source. Or, well, they have an agenda. Or, that's not real data, it's just statistics. Bonhoeffer writes it perfectly. He says, facts that contradict one's prejudgment simply need not be believed. The facts, they just don't count. When facts are irrefutable, they are just pushed aside as inconsequential. Does that sound familiar? Think about the last time you tried to convince someone of something important, something you cared about, something you'd put thought into. They didn't engage with your evidence. They didn't address your actual argument. They just dismissed it, like it wasn't even worth considering, like the very act of listening to you was a threat to something they couldn't afford to lose. That's exactly what Bonhoeffer is describing. Now here's where Bonhoeffer makes something absolutely clear that changes everything. Stupidity has nothing to do with intelligence. Nothing. Watch this. He writes, "There are human beings who are of remarkably agile intellect, yet stupid, and others who are intellectually quite dull, yet anything but stupid." This is the insight that should reorganize how you understand the world. You know, intelligent people who are completely stupid, people with high IQs who can't think for themselves, PhDs who've surrendered their minds, professors who've become vessels for ideology, people who are brilliant in their domain but can't see obvious contradictions outside of it, people who can argue circles around you logically but refuse to follow that same logic when it threatens their worldview. And you know people who aren't particularly academically gifted, people who didn't go to fancy schools, people who didn't read all the right books, but they have something else. They have wisdom. They have independence. They have clarity. They see through nonsense. They ask the right questions. They stay curious instead of defensive. So if it's not about brain power, if it's not about education, if it's not about access to information, what is stupidity actually? Bonhoeffer's answer is chilling. He says, stupidity is not a lack of brain power, it's a surrender of independence. That's the definition. Not a lack, a surrender. And then he explains how it happens. He writes, "Under certain circumstances, people are made stupid, or they allow this to happen to them. Made stupid, not born stupid, not raised stupid, made stupid by forces outside themselves, by social pressure, by the promise of something they desperately want. And here's the mechanism. When a powerful force rises, political, religious, social, doesn't matter what type, it offers people something almost irresistible. Certainty, belonging, identity, purpose, a tribe, a way to understand the world, an explanation for why things are the way they are, a sense that you're on the right side of history, a feeling that you finally understand what's really going on, and there's a cost, a real cost. To join, you have to stop thinking for yourself. Not all thinking, but certain kinds of thinking. Certain questions become forbidden. Not explicitly, not like, don't ask this question or we'll punish you, but implicitly. Asking certain questions marks you as outside. Questioning becomes heresy. Doubt becomes betrayal. Bonhoeffer writes it perfectly. Under the overwhelming impact of rising power, humans are deprived of their inner independence and, more or less consciously, give up establishing an autonomous position. They stop asking questions, not because they're dumb, because asking questions becomes dangerous. It becomes a threat to belonging. It becomes something that could get them cast out, isolated, rejected from the tribe. So they don't ask, they accept, they surrender their independence in exchange for certainty and belonging. And here's the thing, that surrender, it feels good. Let me be specific about how this actually works, because understanding the mechanism is what helps you see it happening. It doesn't happen all at once. It's not dramatic. You don't wake up one day and think, today I'm going to surrender my ability to think for myself. It's gradual, it's subtle, and that's what makes it so dangerous. It starts with a feeling, a vulnerability. You feel alienated, confused, like the world doesn't make sense, like something is wrong but you can't quite name it, like you're alone. This is the psychological opening. That moment when someone is emotionally vulnerable, when they're questioning, when they're searching for answers. Then something appears, an ideology, a movement, a leader, a community, a system that claims to have answers. It has certainty. It has a place for you. It has meaning. And here's the critical moment. It requires that you stop asking certain questions. Not all questions, but specific ones, the questions that would threaten the system. It presents these questions as illegitimate, as attacks, as proof that you're not ready for the truth yet, or worse, as proof that you're on the wrong side, that you're asleep, that you're part of the problem. And because you desperately want to belong, because you desperately want certainty, you don't ask. You accept the restriction. You say, okay, I won't ask about that. And then something strange happens. That restriction, it starts to feel like clarity. It feels like you've finally understood something. It feels like everyone else is still asleep, but you've woken up. The surrender of independence starts to feel like wisdom. The acceptance of restriction starts to feel like freedom. This is the psychological trap. You've made a trade. Independence for belonging. Critical thinking for certainty. And that trade, it feels right. It feels true. It feels like you're finally on the path to understanding. But you've become vulnerable to any direction the ideology pulls you, because your thinking has been outsourced. Your discernment has been surrendered. You're running on their operating system now. You're using their language. You're thinking their thoughts. And the most insidious part, you don't realize it. From your perspective, you've never been clearer, never been more certain, never understood the world better. You think you're waking up. In reality, you're being put to sleep. Watch what happens to language. Bonhoeffer noticed this in his time, and it's even more visible now. As people surrender their independence, their language becomes more rigid, more templated, more sloganic. They stop using unique phrases and start repeating catchwords. They stop having actual conversations and start delivering talking points. They stop thinking about specific situations and start applying universal principles that don't fit. Language becomes a tool of ideology, not a tool of thought. And here's what's insidious. They don't know it's happening. From their perspective, they're finally speaking truth. They're finally using the language that describes reality correctly. Everyone else is still using the old language, the corrupted language. But they've learned the new language, the true language. In reality, they've been programmed. And this is why you'll notice that people who've surrendered their independence, they all sound similar. It's not that they're dumb. It's not that they're saying the same thing because they've independently reached the same conclusion. It's that they're running the same software. They've been programmed with the same responses. They recite rather than reason. Bonhoeffer describes it perfectly. He says that in conversation with the stupid person, the person who's surrendered their independence, you feel like you're dealing with a living being who's been replaced by ideology. The person is still there physically, they still have a body, they still look human, but the thinking person has been evacuated. What's left is a repeater, a vessel. And the tragedy is this: the stupid person will defend this state fiercely, will attack you for pointing it out. Because admitting it would mean admitting they've surrendered themselves. It would mean facing the loneliness they were trying to escape. It would mean losing the tribe that finally made them feel like they belonged. It would mean being cast out. So they don't admit it. They double down. They attack the people trying to wake them up, because your clarity is a threat to their constructed certainty. Your independence is a reminder of what they gave up. Your questioning is proof that the trade didn't have to be made. Now you understand something. You understand why your arguments don't work. You think you're talking to a person who's just confused or misinformed. You think if you just present the right evidence, if you just explain it clearly enough, if you just find the right words, they'll understand. They'll see it. Their eyes will open. But that's not what's happening. You're actually talking to a system. You're talking to a mental framework that's been explicitly designed, whether consciously or unconsciously doesn't matter, to filter out anything that threatens its stability. And you're a threat. The stupid person, as Bonhoeffer explains, looks stubborn, looks strong, looks like they have conviction, but it's actually the opposite. It's fragility disguised as certainty. It's desperation pretending to be strength, because deep down, the person knows something. They know that if they let one doubt in, just one, the whole structure collapses, the identity crumbles, the sense of being right, of understanding, of belonging, it all disappears. They're left alone with their thoughts, and that's unbearable. So they don't let doubt in. Instead, they double down, they attack, they deflect, they find reasons to dismiss you, not because you're wrong, but because you're right. And that's unbearable. This is why Bonhoeffer says something brutal, something that hits different when you really understand it. He says, "Never again will we try to persuade the stupid person with reasons, for it is senseless and dangerous." Senseless because it won't work. You cannot think someone out of a position they didn't think themselves into, but dangerous too, because when you challenge their belief system, you're not just disagreeing with them, you're threatening their identity, you're threatening their sense of belonging, you're threatening the tribe that made them feel like they weren't alone. And people will actually fight, to protect that. They'll fight with words. They'll fight by isolating you. They'll fight by delegitimizing you. They'll fight by pointing out your flaws to make your argument invalid. They'll use their intelligence, and remember, stupid people are often highly intelligent, to defend a position they surrendered their independence to adopt. Here's where Bonhoeffer makes an observation that shifts everything. He notices something crucial about stupidity. It's not individual, it's not personal, it's social. He writes, "People who have isolated themselves from others or who live in solitude manifest this defect less frequently than individuals or groups of people inclined or condemned to sociability." Stupidity is a group phenomenon. The more you need to belong, the more vulnerable you are. The more you're wired for connection and community, which is to say, the more human you are, the more susceptible you become to surrendering your independence. Bonhoeffer's insight, it would seem that stupidity is perhaps less a psychological problem than a sociological problem. It's not in your brain, it's in your social environment. And then he makes a statement that should terrify you. He writes, "Every strong upsurge of power in the public sphere, be it of a political or of a religious nature, infects a large part of humankind with stupidity. It's almost like a law of nature. When power rises, stupidity follows. It's not a coincidence, it's structural." Think about what he's saying. Every authoritarian regime, every cult, every mass movement that's ever captured human attention and devotion, every ideology that's ever demanded total loyalty, they don't succeed because people are dumb. They succeed because people surrender their intelligence in exchange for something they want more, certainty and belonging. The power of the one needs the stupidity of the many. That's the formula. That's how it works. And once that trade is made, once someone has given up their independence in exchange for membership in the tribe, you cannot reason them out of it, because they didn't reason themselves into it. This is why debate doesn't work. This is why evidence doesn't work. This is why pointing out contradictions doesn't work. They didn't arrive at their position through logic. You won't dismantle it through logic. Bonhoeffer is brutally honest about this. He says, "Only an act of liberation, not instruction, can overcome stupidity. You cannot teach someone out of it. You cannot debate them out of it. They have to be freed from it." And here's the tragic part. Here's what makes Bonhoeffer's analysis so dark. In most cases, genuine internal liberation becomes possible only when external liberation has preceded it. What does that
What does that mean? It means the external power structure has to collapse first. The regime has to fall, the leader has to die, the movement has to crumble, the tribe has to lose its power and certainty. Only then, when the external pressure disappears, when the system that provided certainty collapses, can people wake up? Can they start thinking for themselves again? Can they ask the questions they've been forbidden from asking? Until that happens, Bonhoeffer says we must abandon all attempts to convince the stupid person. It's not cynicism, it's not cruelty, it's survival, because trying to convince them wastes your energy. It exposes you to their attacks.
It gives you hope that logic will eventually work, when logic was never the mechanism by which they arrived at their position. So you stop trying. You protect yourself. You preserve your own independence. And you wait for the external structure to collapse. Bonhoeffer wrote this letter in December 1942. He was writing to men who were literally conspiring to assassinate the head of state. These weren't safe conversations. Every word was dangerous. Every meeting was a risk. 4 months after writing this letter, Bonhoeffer was arrested 2 years later. April 9th, 1945, literally just weeks before Germany surrendered, weeks before the external structure finally collapsed. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was hanged. He was executed before he could see the liberation he wrote about, before he could see people beginning to wake up, before he could see the regime crumble and, with it, the stupidity begin to release its grip. He never got to see if his theory was right, but his words, they survived. And they're more relevant now than they've ever been, because we're living in an age of manufactured stupidity, not accidental stupidity, not natural stupidity, but systematically engineered stupidity. We have algorithms that reward certainty over curiosity, feed you what you already believe, punish you for doubt. We have echo chambers that amplify ideology and isolate heresy. We have movements, left, right, religious, secular, that demand total loyalty in exchange for belonging. And what's happening? Millions of people, smart people, educated people, talented people are making the same trade Bonhoeffer warned about. They're surrendering their independence, becoming vessels for slogans, repeating ideas they never questioned, attacking anyone who dares to think clearly. The mechanism is identical. The outcome is the same. The only difference is the scale and the speed at which it happens. What took years to accomplish in Bonhoeffer's time now happens in months. What required propaganda machinery now happens through social media. What once needed a central authority figure now happens through decentralized networks of stupidity. But the core is unchanged. Intelligent people are choosing not to think, and they're choosing it because independence is lonely and belonging is warm. Now you understand something deeper. You understand why it feels so lonely to think for yourself. Why trying to stay independent in a world addicted to certainty and belonging feels like you're swimming against a current that wants to drown you. It's not because you're broken. It's not because you're arrogant or cold or unable to connect. It's because you're refusing to make the trade. You're keeping your independence, even when it would be so much easier not to. Even when you could feel certain. Even when you could belong. Even when you could stop carrying the weight of questions that don't have easy answers. You're choosing the harder path. And in a world that's increasingly structured to reward the surrender of independence, that makes you dangerous, but it also makes you free. Bonhoeffer's final words on this subject were simple. He wrote, "The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom." What does that mean? It doesn't mean religious fear. It means a kind of humility, a recognition that you don't have all the answers, that certainty is an illusion, that the universe is more complex than any ideology can contain. Real intelligence isn't about having all the answers, it's about staying humble enough to keep questioning. Brave enough to stand alone, strong enough to resist the comfort of stupidity. It's about recognizing that every time a movement offers you certainty and belonging in exchange for your independent thought, you're being offered stupidity disguised as wisdom. And it's about having the strength to say no, even when it's lonely, even when everyone around you is saying yes, even when the cost feels unbearable, because the alternative, surrendering your mind, is higher. Here's the truth they don't want you to know. Stupid people, the way Bonhoeffer defines them, people who've surrendered their independence, they're not actually the problem. You are. The fact that you're still thinking, the fact that you're still questioning, the fact that you're still refusing to surrender your independence even though it would be so much easier, that's the threat. Not because you're arrogant, but because you're proof that the trade doesn't have to be made, that certainty isn't necessary, that you can live with complexity and ambiguity and still maintain your sanity. You're living proof that stupidity is a choice, and that proof is dangerous to a system that depends on everyone making that choice. So they'll attack you, they'll try to make you feel crazy, they'll try to make you feel alone, they'll try to convince you that independent thought is arrogance, that asking questions is hostility, that refusing to surrender is selfishness. Don't believe it. What you're experiencing isn't weakness, it's the opposite. You're experiencing the weight of freedom, and that's the only thing worth carrying. Bonhoeffer's theory that Eden isn't just about understanding history, it's about understanding the choice in front of you. Right now, every day, you're offered the trade, certainty and belonging in exchange for your independent thought, in small ways and large ways, in movements that seem noble, and movements that seem obviously wrong, in groups that seem aligned with truth, and groups that seem destructive. The mechanism is always the same, the cost is always the same. Your independence, and the question Bonhoeffer leaves you with, is simple. Is the certainty worth it? Is the belonging worth the surrender? Because once you've crossed that line, once you've given up establishing an autonomous position, once you've surrendered your independence, you don't get it back. Not until the external structure collapses. That's the warning. That's the theory they never wanted you to hear. And now you know why.